Good afternoon to chat and to my guest today, Tom Kane. It's absolutely lovely to see you all. I don't know about anywhere else, but it is an absolutely gorgeous day after many, many days of rain, it feels like. How is everyone doing? Tom, that
I'm
includes
doing very
you.
well, thank you. And I'm honored to be here.
It is good to have you back. We've talked about your games before, and you've touched a little bit on your books, but this is the first time we get to talk about your your fiction books kind of in depth and especially the upcoming stuff, which I'm very excited to hear about. So, I'd want to say a quick hello to the people we've got gathered. Jack, it's good to see you. Legatus, welcome. And I think I saw, yes, Eraserhead snuck in while the music was playing. Hopefully, we will have a few more people who can pop in and ask some questions later. Um, I know we have a lot of aspiring writers and many, many readers in our regular chat, so hope to get some of them in. And Eraserhead is already starting with the like and subscribe, which makes me very happy. I really hope that everyone has already liked and subscribed, but I will take what I can get. So Tom, let's see, you have written obviously gaming supplements. You have written lots and lots of nonfiction books on political science and military. Do I remember that all correctly? And lots of papers. And then went back to fantasy writing. And we've talked a little about on other shows about the Mara of the Legal. Oh, I can talk. Mara of the League series, which is 4 books, and then a fifth book that's kind of a spin off. And now you are working on a new series. Can you tell us a little bit, just kind of about the overview to get us started, and then we'll get into the first book specifically?
Okay. Well, the um, the new series is called Sleep of Reason, and the overall what it is it's fantasy graduate school. And if you this is where the people that have been to graduate school will know that it's a book full of conflict and intrigue. Um, the and the the basic we were talking before this started about the blurb. Uh, if you like, I'll read the blurb, and then I'll say a few words about why the blurb has to change, which I think will introduce you a little bit more of what the book is all about.
That makes sounds like a good introductory start to the book in general. I
I
already love where this discussion is going.
I'm happy. This blurb, the blurb I'm about to read, appears in The People versus Abigail Bennet, which is the book that got described as a spinoff. And The People versus Abigail Bennet is a legal fantasy, so which may explain why the word legal was creeping into the conversation a few minutes ago. Um, and but the, the next book that we're talking about is only tangentially about the law. The next book was here and introduced as follows: Sleep of Reason. When a creature from Elena's nightmares breaks into the waking world and devours a student, this people-pleasing servant discovers her dreams can kill. The student's friends try to solve the mystery of his death. They risk their lives, friendships, and scholarly careers to expose the person responsible. However, only Elena can return the hungry nightmares to their own realm. To do this, she must stand up to her masters and teach herself magic, which the learned folk of her world declare impossible. A political fantasy set in the early gunpowder era world of the Mara of the League series. And that blurb, the good part of the blurb is it sets out the you know the main excitement of the book. Um, the, there are a group of graduate students who are facing a final examination where failure means death, um, and their new teacher has changed the way this examination works. So they've been studying for 10 years, and well, each of them has been studying a different length of time, but they've been studying for a significant part of their young lives. and and now everything they've studied may be useless. So they have to you know get permission to take the test they study for, um, suck it up and take the examination. They have to decide how they're going to deal with this situation. And meanwhile, into the middle of it comes Elena, the person I talked about in the blurb, who apparently has figured out how to do magic in a world where most people don't believe in magic, or at least most sort of like most most educated people, most of the sort of people that you meet at a university. And and Elena's story and the student's story sort of run separately for a while, and then they come together. Now, the main reason why I no longer like that blurb is that in that blurb, I described Elena as a people pleaser, and when I used that, all I meant is that sort of Elena's character struggle is that she's been putting up with stuff for a long time. She's been sort of taking the back seat in some of her personal relationships, and she's sick of it. And that's what pushes her into fooling around with magic. She's trying to sort of take control of her life, and I have learned since then that the word, and that's all I meant when I said that she was a people pleaser. That she's been trying to be nice, and and now she's not going to be so nice anymore. Since then, I've learned that expression "people pleaser" has specific meanings in counseling, psychology, etc. And I don't I don't want I don't want to invoke those specific meanings. I don't. All I mean is that she's not going to take it anymore. She's been taking it, and no longer. And another, so that's the main thing that I want to change. And maybe someday, if I issue a new edition of The People versus Abigail Bennet, I will change. Um, that's my main objection to it. Another thing that I might change a little bit is that the story elements that I described, the story elements in this blurb that I just read aloud, um, focus bring in a lot of things that happen in book two of Sleep of Reason. Because I originally planned Sleep of Reason to be one book. It's expanded into a duology, and so if I was when I rewrite a blurb specifically for the book I'm hoping to release in a few months, um, I will focus more on book one, and then I'll have a second blurb for book two.
That's interesting. We were discussing backstage about, how people tend to have certain expectations about how books are set up, and that most are either one or three or five, and there are duologies, but they are, I think, kind of unusual. Um, and so I do have to admit, when you told me the title of book one and book two, my brain just automatically assumed there would be a book three later on.
Well, I'm fighting to keep that from happening because I want to finish writing this, and the and it is it is threatening to happen because of as I've just hinted, this book has expanded a lot as I've worked on it, and I think the new material improves it. I'm I mean, obviously, I'm the author, so I better be. But I'm happy. I'm happy with what's happened. But it has expanded, and it could continue to expand. There are half a dozen scenes that I like that I'm cutting out to keep it from being a trilogy. Well, no, I mean, I, if I really thought that a trilogy would be better, I would make it a trilogy. The real reason I'm cutting them out is I think it makes a tighter, more focused, faster paced, more exciting, more gripping story. But it also keeps it from becoming a trilogy.
Yeah, that's really important though. There are there's the whole thing about kill your children. That there can be scenes that are wonderful that people really like and that authors want to keep in, but they don't fit that particular story. It's a great scene, but not where it is. And I always tell people, like, just clip it out and save it for your next book.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And another thing about why this is a duology and not a trilogy, um, is sort of in a way it relates to that same thing. Not necessarily the cutting stuff out part, but the reason why you cut stuff out. One major reason why you kill your children is is you know to so that your story stays focused from beginning to middle to end. And the story I have now has sort of um two big it there's sort of two big things that happen in this story, two big points of resolution. So it makes sense for it to be two books, with book one taking us to the resolution of the first plot, and book two taking us to the resolution of the whole thing.
Hmm.
And making it and expanding it into a trilogy would mean having book one's end was sort of like nothing quite having happened, and then something happening in the middle of book two, but book two also ending with th- things sort of in the air. um,
Hmm.
and I would rather have boom boom.
Yeah, that makes sense. Jack McCarthy says, "Respect Mr. Kane. It is tough to rein it in and keep an eye on the overall story structure." Yeah, especially, I mean, you are obviously not a first-time writer, but when I edit for first-time writers, that is definitely something that I notice. For that matter, like you get things like George Martin and Robert Jordan, who were both notorious for kind of getting carried away with side quests and ending up with 14 book series. So,
And at least in the case of Martin not finishing.
well, I mean, he's not dead yet, but
True.
but it's not looking good.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. He definitely, it is definitely physically possible.
So we already have a question for you. There's been a lot of manga and anime dealing with stories about schools and students. And is there something different about yours that makes it non-manga esque?
Well, a
It already.
completely honest answer is I don't know, because I am aware of the academic theme in anime, but I haven't I haven't read or watched much of it. So um but I suspect here are some things that I suspect will and another thing I'll say is if it turns out that it is similar to that, as far as I'm concerned, that's great. I would love for everybody who enjoys manga and anime academic stories to come and enjoy mine. Um, but here are having with those things out of the way. Here are some things that I suspect will you know be give me a note of originality. Um, One is that again, I could be totally wrong about this, but I think I'm right in saying that the anime and manga stories are usually set in a private high school, or what Americans would call a high school. In other words, people in their late teens.
Yeah,
And
you would be correct at least from what little bits I've watched.
I'm glad. I mean, I see I see pictures from them that look like teenagers dressed. Well, I won't even get into what some of those pictures look like. But the uh, Sleep of Reason, um, is primarily set in graduate school. So it's and it's fairly similar to the graduate school experience is not exactly the same. I mean, people die, but it is fairly similar to what you'd see in real life in modern times. That is, you have a university where most of the students are just there to get their 4 year bachelor's degree, but the graduate students are ones that get their 4 year bachelor's degree and stay on into their late 20s and early 30s, and um, that's when the stuff hits the fan for them, and they're sort of halfway between being students and being sort of junior members of academic staff. They're called students, but in a sense they're part-time employee. They're also part-time employees of the university, and they do some of the same jobs that professors do, and
So
and they do.
lots of teaching assistants in this story.
Yes, they're teaching assistants. Yes, and also they're doing I mean, teaching the whole issue of teaching assistantships is important in this story, and also they're doing original research, which you know could be could in fact could turn out to be very important research. So they're making, well, of course, anybody can.
Hmm.
You can do original research in your backyard, and it might be important. I mean, seriously, plenty of lay people have discovered important things, but the uh, the students in this story are almost expected to make meaningful scientific discoveries. The main character in book one is studying what to us would be the planet Mars. It's called the planet Mavora in his world,
Hmm.
but it's a planet similar to Mars, and he's looking for signs that they're using they're this is a pre-modern setting, so telescopes are not what they are today. And with the telescopes that they have at that time, when you look at Mars, some people see very faint lines around the equator. So Skip, the main character in Book One, Sleep of Reason, is trying to figure out whether those lines around the equator of Mars are canals built by an alien civilization.
Hmm.
And so that's the point I'm making is that he as far as anyone knows, he could be the person to discover extraterrestrial life in his world. The that's the level he's at. So in any case, getting back to the question about anime and manga, one major difference is that the students are older. They are they their role is different. Their lives are different. They so, and another potential difference. Well, I mean, I back off from it. Another thing that I would say about that is that this is a life. I mean, I have lived every part of this life from being a graduate student to supervising graduate students. So I'm hoping that I can bring you know some granularity, as they say, to this. I can tell you not just sort of broadly what happens to not just broadly what happens to them, but what little things go on day to day that that define that experience. And beyond that, I think I think that is actually going to be my answer to the question. The main difference between what I'm doing and what manga people do is that it's graduate school instead of high school.
And with that, I think having read your writing, um, I think will come the fact that your characters will be a lot more mature than most anime and manga characters.
Oh, I thank you.
I mean, you tend to write 8-year-olds as if they're more mature than most adults. So
Yeah, that
mo modern day adults anyway.
yeah, and I mean I am I hear what you're saying, and I hear and I hear how that relates in particular to the Witches of Craddock Dale.
Mhm.
And just for anyone who's interested, um, sleep um, all of my books, including Sleep of Reason, um, feature a wide range of ages. Um, but by the Marrow of the League series, which I think is what Goat is talking about, begins with the main character at 11, and her little brother is 8. So the first book is about child characters. Well, Sleep of Reason is primarily about adult characters, but it goes into their backstories. So even though the present day shows these characters at 28, 29, 30, um, we learn what they are like as children, and some of them were more mature as children than others. But I suspect that I mean, I hope you'll read it. If and when you read it, you will still say that my children characters sound like mature children.
They do still sound like children, though, which is something that is sometimes hard I have read adult authors that do not do children well, and yours sound like mature children, but they do sound like children, which is kind of nice.
Well, thank you. That's obviously a major challenge that I work with as a writer. Oh, and one other thing I just wanted to throw in about ages. Um, uh, I also do the other end of the age spectrum. The People versus Abigail Bennet, which I show you because it's on top of my stack here, is the main character here is 78, and the characters in Sleep of Reason, um, there there are uh, there are fewer. You know, none of the main characters in Sleep of Reason are, you know, beyond their 30s, but their professor. Well, they have multiple professors, but a professor who was a mentor to them and an inspiration to them, and sort of like, um, you know, he's their their guiding light throughout this experience. Is an older man.
Um, what was I going to ask you? Oh, so this is like kind of an advanced doctorate graduate program, not like a master's. So they're not even like 23. They're kind of upper 20s.
Right. When the story starts, Skip, the main character, is 28.
Hmm.
And yes, he's finishing. Well, in their world, in our world, a PhD is normally as high as you go. I mean, we can sort of like play around the edges. You know, I believe I'm right in saying that in Germany you can go beyond PhD, um, and even in Britain and America, um, there are like things you can do. You can do a postdoctoral fellowship, that sort of thing. But uh, for simplicity purposes, in the English speaking parts of our world, um, a PhD is the highest degree. Well, in the world of my fantasy novel, the step beyond PhD is called savant doctor, and it's when you become an SD, and it's when you move from PhD to SD that you take the mysterious test that I talked about, where you could die, and that is the stage that Skip is at. He he's effectively he has his masters. He could have his masters. He's past the stage of master study. He's past the stage of PhD study. He's ready for the final step.
So that's actually a good lead in. Legatus wanted to know what the reading level was for this, whether it was young adult or teen. It sounds like you may be dealing the fact that you're dealing with the potential for death in at the end of a test. Seems like that might make it kind of interesting. On the other hand, Hunger Games was considered a teenager young adult book, and that was pretty graphic. So
Yeah. Well, first of all, direct answer to the question. Uh, I market these books for adults. Uh, and they do have, and Sleep of Reason in particular is going to have um, a little. I mean, in addition to the death, there's going to be some other sort of disturbing content. So I think I personally, I mean, I like to think that I might have read them as a teenager, but if a parent was asking, should I buy this for my teenager, I would tell the parent, be aware that it has some disturbing and some.
you should read it first and then make your decision.
Yeah. And another thing that I would say about that is that I also, and again, this is a point where, as the author, I'm I may I may not be completely objective. My goal as an author is to write so anyone could read it. You know, I would love to think that teenagers could read my books and enjoy them and understand them and that sort of thing. Um, However, at the same time, um, I do talk about, not only do I talk about adult subjects like death, I talk about adult subjects like the philosophy of the scientific method, and the nature of consciousness, and so uh, again, it is. I hope I'm doing it in a way that even people who don't do these things on a day-to-day basis will understand what I'm saying and like be into it. But at the same time, it makes it hard to give it the label YA. And one final thing I'm going to say on a different note is Legatus. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Legatus. I see sort of a Roman theme in your username here, and so for you in particular, I want to point out that there are Greek and Roman themes in Sleep of Reason. It's an imaginary world, but in the Aurelian Islands where it takes place, there are two. There are there's a history in which a original, well, not originally, but in antiquity, a what to us what in our world would be the equivalent of Greek speaking people lived there, and even as Greece in our world became part of the Roman Empire, Arcadia in their world became part of the Lavinian Empire, and Lavinia is a Roman coded society, and now thousands of years have passed, but there's still sort of like ethnic tensions between the earlier Greek population and the more recent and socially dominant Lavinian population. So there's a lot of Roman and Greek, um, you know, cultural references in this book.
Um, so I was kind of wondering, I mean, there are a lot of adult themes in the Mara series as well. Would you consider this more or less mature than that? Or for or more or less mature readers, I guess I should say?
A quick answer would be roughly the same.
Okay.
I think if you were not traumatized by the Mara series, you will not be traumatized by Sleep of Reason. Um, uh, However, a slightly more unpacked answer is when I think about how to the it's when I think about how to like when I think about, for instance, writing content warnings. Um, the I sort of have a dilemma in that as I say, overall, I think Sleep of Reason is pretty okay. Um, I myself do not like to read really awful stuff, and so I don't write really awful stuff.
Hmm.
Um, However, there are there are I have with great thought. Um, I like I'm not just throwing it in for shock value. I'm not just throwing it in because I wrote casually. I've considered why I need to do these things. Uh, I am mentioning some things that that if I just said this is what I'm mentioning, uh, it might sound kind of traumatizing. I don't have like graphic, gory detail. I don't wallow in it. I don't. Well, I mean, I sincerely hope that I'm not doing it in an exploitative way, um, but it is mentioned. So I have sort of the question: if I'm answering a question like this or writing content readings, do I say content? Do I say is my content warning? You know, bullying some violence. Bullying is one thing, comma some violence, or do I give this long list of things that I just sort of like mention happen in the world that would make the book sound much worse than I think it actually is.
I mean, because, I think about it, and, it used to be there was a pretty distinct line, except that I can remember people reading it when I was in middle school, and that is very definitely designed for adults. But then you have Twilight, which was designed specifically for teenagers and is very graphic in certain places. Deals with teen pregnancy, deals with the possibility of death in pregnancy. There's a lot of violence. Hunger Games is, children murdering each other. And my understanding is that there is now a big thing about books being labeled as young adult when in fact what they just are straight like BDSM, like erotica novels. like um so I don't know, it does feel like figuring out those lines are kind of blurred these days.
I'm I agree that it's kind of blurred, and I also say, I mean, again, I know nothing about the YA BDSM, but that just does not sound good.
I haven't read it, but there are a couple of YouTube like editors and authors and stuff that have talked a lot about the changes in kind of the publishing arena, and about how it's harder for male authors to get published, and about how it's boys tend to not have a lot of books that are written for them anymore, and one of the things they mentioned is this push for quote unquote spicy material in girls' young adult books. So
Oh, that is interesting. I mean, I'm of course, um, sort of the snarky part of me wants to say yeah, boys hate spicy material, but actually, seriously, I do get what you know what you know traditionally what sort of the traditional sort of romance novel has for spicy material probably does not appeal to teenage boys,
right,
and
right,
and um,
yeah.
and by the way, speaking is just riffing on that also in another way. One thing, but one other feature of Sleep of Reason is that it is a it is a much more masculine centric work than the Mara of the League series was. Well, I mean, obviously, the Mara of the League series is about Mara, um, and the Sleep of Reason is well, Sleep of Reason has sort of two 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 foci, and one of those foci is Elena, so a woman, and the other of those foci is Skip, um, um, a man. So the male gaze is more extensively serviced. That sounds bad, but I don't mean it that way. In Sleep of Reason.
Um, yeah, because I mean, in Mara, it's not only Mara herself that's the focus; it's her mother, it's her two best friends who are both female.
Yeah,
Um, which was
and
kind of
she
another.
doesn't. She her romantic relationships are compared to some books, they're a relatively small part of the story. I mean, com, compared to the romance novels that we were talking about, they're a tiny part of the story. So again, there's you you don't you don't bring in testosterone
Yeah,
through a romantic lead.
yeah. Um, but yeah, there's been kind of a lot of looking at these changes in how things are getting published. So that was where I happened to get that little tidbit of information.
Yeah,
My
and
main my main observation has been, and this may be one of the reasons I was so taken with the Mara series. If I walk into a bookstore and I pick up 6 books, 5 of them are going to have almost identical blurbs, and I'm going to know how they end before I ever open the book. Um, so I find I don't read as much anymore, or I go back and I reread older stuff. So
that is frustrating.
yeah, it's very. I the sixth. So I do this every time I go to the bookstore. I just pick 6 books at random and I look at them and I'm like, yep, same, 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 same. So the last time I went in, I look at the 6th one. I was like, oh, this one actually, this is the outlier. This is the one that actually sounds different. And then I picked up the second book in the series, which gives away how the first book ended in the blurb. And I'm like, oh, nope. Apparently, the entire book turned around to like I was born awesome anyway from birth. No, it was just that no one knew it.
So did you read that before you bought the first one?
I didn't buy the first one.
Yeah. I guess
No,
what I'm saying is
I
you were
looked at this.
warned. You were warned that it was the same plot.
Yeah, it wasn't an outlier at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I picked up the second one because I was trying to figure out how many books there were in the series because they appeared to have 1, 2, and 4, which I find very frustrating in a bookstore. So
I I I relate to that frustration. and I also, I mean, again, just to repeat, I seriously relate to the frustration of the same story being repeated over and over again, and nowhere does that hit harder than with the Star Wars movies. But sadly, it is not limited to the Star Wars movies.
So Eraserhead says he's heard that people that write the blurbs don't even read the entire book they're writing the blurb for. That may be true, and it may simply be a sign of how common the plots on all these books are. Um, I agree that's probably some of why they end up sounding vague and generic, but I really do think that, there are certain things that are selling right now, and that's just all publication companies want. If you're ordering through kind of the big, what is it, like all the major publication companies are now owned by something like 5 different companies, or maybe not even that.
Sounds right. I'm listening here. I'm like checking off same with the lots of things you said and what Eraserhead said and other things people have said as well. And yes, I certainly the, I see people that are are offering to write your blurb for you for money, and I don't know. I've never hired one of those people, but I doubt if they read your book.
It seems weird. That seems like it ought to be part of the publication process.
Yeah, I
Though I
well,
guess if you're self-publishing, but still.
oh yeah. I think the people I see are primarily for self publishers, but even still, you ought to you ought to know what the story is before you write the blurb for it,
Yeah,
and you
absolutely.
also it would be nice if books were original enough so that you couldn't write a blurb for a book you hadn't read.
Yeah. Yeah. Racerhead says it's kind of like when Hollywood was like, "Hey, the Academy actually has to watch the movies they vote for now."
Yes. But
But
by the way, some way back in the chat, I saw a question that was when I talk about there being awful things in my book, did I mean awful like and it gave two examples that
oh, I missed that.
yeah, well, anyway, I will have a hard time answering that question because I haven't read either of the examples you gave. But again, what I'll say is I think the second example you gave was a a popular mass market fantasy novel. And now I can't even remember what it was, but it was like I think it might have been I now I don't even want to guess because I'm going to get it wrong, but it was a major fantasy novel. So I suspect that if you read, and I hope you do, when you read Sleep of Reason, I suspect you will say that it's either like the major fantasy novel or a little less disturbing than that. I mean, this is they're going um, the 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 things that I'm dancing around. I'll go into a little more specificity of what I'm talking about. Well, of the dicey parts of Sleep of Reason. There is there is a scene where Skip is it's a flashback to when Skip was a teenager, and Skip is getting ready to go to college, and his big brother takes him aside and tells him some things that a young man should know before he heads out to college. And his big brother says the most important thing you can do at college is forget about like classes and stuff. That's just what you want to do is you want to get into a good fraternity. And his big brother tells him a little bit about fraternity initiations, and there and mentions some extreme fraternity initiations, and that you don't and Skip makes up his mind that he does not want to be in a fraternity. He does not want to get involved in that, and that's the point of the scene. And you don't actually you don't there's not he never he I mean, I don't think this is too big a spoiler. You never are going to see that extreme initiation, you know, depicted in gory detail. You never are going, there is just a mention of, yeah, fraternities do some bad stuff, and I was specific about bad stuff they did because I did want to make the point that, this is, we're not we're not joking around about this. This is actually, this is actually bad. And
Yeah,
yeah,
it is unfortunately also a true fact though that fraternities can get you places.
yeah, that is, again, without giving too much away, that is the dramatic tension of that scene. Um, Skip Skip doesn't want to join the fraternity, but his father thinks he should, and of course his big brother thinks he should, and this was, and when we got to the, I mean, this was in the flashback. When we get to Skip's present, um, he's dealing with the consequences of the choices he made then.
Hmm.
And yeah, now that I see Desaad, I don't, I, I hope there is no comparison with Desaad.
Yeah, no, I think
And
there's
Abercrombie's First Law, again, I have not read it, but, although actually, tangent about Abercrombie's First Law, uh, I, I have I mean I have not read Abercrombie's First Law, but I I did, like, have to Google it while I was working on this book, because I talk about the first law of thermodynamics, and I wondered, I mean, and I wondered, wait a minute, is this what Abercrombie was writing about? And I
no.
Googled it, and assured myself that that's a different first law.
It is pretty graphic in places, but I do highly suggest that trilogy. It is very, very good.
Okay, and it sounds, if you describe it as pretty graphic in places, again, I think that probably I am less graphic,
Yeah, it's
and there, yeah,
there are battle scenes that are not whitewashed or whatever we're allowed to call that these days. They are not glossed over. Um, they are, people get severely injured and there are consequences to the fact that they get severely injured. They don't
sure.
just get like a pretty scar that, they carry around for the rest of the series. So,
No, it sounds like, I mean, it does sound like he's a very serious writer.
yeah, it's a little bit of a slow start. It's not a very fast-paced book, but the character development is some of the best I've seen in quite some time.
That is a good thing. And Legatus, in terms of, I assume, I don't know if don't know if I ever can see this. Legatus is saying that he sees that my books are 6 by 9, sort of the physical size of the paperbacks, and he asked what happened to sort of like the little, 4 and a quarter by 3 and a, of the little paperbacks that we used to have.
Yeah, I
And
miss those.
I, I I think, I think the answer to the question is, yes. Book this size um, is becoming more popular, and it works for me, because I get get my covers. I have original paintings done for my covers, by an artist that I'm very happy to be working with, named Robin Burrow, and this size, shows off shows off her work, um, effectively. The smaller, I mean, she there's a lot of detail in her paintings, and the smaller size makes it harder to get the effect of the detail. So so I have I have that specific reason for using this size, um, but I also do think that it's not just me.
Yeah, I think it's pretty normal these days. And I'm always torn because I can fit less of them on a bookshelf. But at the same time, I'm getting old, so I do appreciate the bigger print.
That was the next thing I was going to say: bigger print.
I mean, they're not like the large print for, people who are totally blind, but it definitely makes my life easier. Except
I hear you, and
except that I need more bookshelves.
except that you need more bookshelves, which is not a small consideration. But I just, personal personal notes and life life progression. I just got my first pair of magnifying glasses, so I also can use larger print. I don't wear them reading. I wear them when I'm physically writing with a pen.
I've worn glasses since I was in third grade. I can't imagine. I can't imagine like getting them that late in life. Must be so hard to adjust.
Yeah, yeah. There are things like things that I hadn't really thought of before, like the fact that, and I don't know if this is true of your glasses. I think it might just be because these are sort of the cheap magnifying lenses. Um, but if you have to hold what you're working with exactly the right distance from the glasses, and if you get it off a little bit, you get double vision. And since, as I say, I my primary reason for using them is to maximize the legibility of my handwriting. Um, the when I was first experiencing that, I didn't realize it was the glasses causing the double vision. I thought that like I was holding the pen wrong. I thought just like I was not getting a smooth line, and then figured out what was happening.
Yeah, Eraserhood is once again showing off the fact that he's a puppy.
Oh, good for you.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah.
Davyverse says it is not just you. Amazon sizing became the norm, and apparently that's what they like.
Oh, okay. That's more data.
It does make sense. Um, so what else can you tell us about the book series without too many giveaways, or does anybody else have any questions about
Oh,
either writing in general or publishing? Or we've covered so many topics about like the art of writing itself as well as the actual story. So yeah, I do agree with Legatus. Using public transit, the smaller books fit in your pockets really well. Big
that
ones are kind of a pain that way.
that is a valid point.
So interestingly, I do not like reading electronically. I find I don't retain very well if I read electronically. Um, but when I was in grad school, I used to carry journals on a tablet because if I was on public transit, carrying one small tablet that would fit in my pocket versus carrying a whole bunch of journal and of actual physical journals was kind of difficult. So
Yeah, if you're talking again, when you're talking about, I mean, it's not just one book. It's as you say, a lot of physical journals. I can see that would be helpful.
well, even just one journal, like
Yeah,
there's the chance if they were going to be libraries, they weren't going to be mine. So the chance of them getting rumpled or damaged or, and they're fairly large.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I,
This would be a common size for them,
yeah.
more or less.
So I think I was imagining the same thing as far as books went, that it just feels like they could get damaged easier if you were transporting them.
Yes.
They're also not great for reading in bed.
No.
It's the same reason I don't like hardcovers because if fall asleep while you're reading and drop it on your head, it kind of sucks.
I imagine. And by the way, Eraserhead, thank you very much for putting my website up.
Yes, he's been very good about that. Um, so yes, uh, audience have questions about writing, publishing, series. Tom, is there anything else about the series that you would like us to know? Is there a chance it might still become a trilogy? You said you're
Uh,
trying really hard not to,
um,
but
yeah, I mean, never speak in absolutes. Unless you're a Sith. Sith can speak in absolutes. But never speak in absolutes. But no, uh, I am really, I am very much at the production stage rather than the writing stage. So, and with and and this is true. This is really true of book two is rougher than book one, but book two is also basically written. Um, so it also is there is relatively little room to change it into a trilogy. So
Hmm.
no, I cannot imagine changing it into a trilogy at this point. I mean, the closest I might come would be sort of like People versus Abigail Bennet to write another book later, using you know you know continuing some of the themes. But this story will be a duology. Um, book book one is uh, is coming out, and book two will be out, shortly afterward.
So you had said backstage that this one kind of needed an edit. Like, does it need an edit or like an alpha reader kind of thing
Um,
before it goes off to
the
pub
At this
publication?
stage, at this stage, more like the alpha reader. I mean, I have like I have like literally, um, you know, two or three. This is I don't know how well you can see this. This is an old envelope that I have written, that I have torn part of off and written notes on. I have two or three things like this with specific lines that I want to change, um, and and so I cannot technically say that I'm finished revising yet, because I have like these one or two notes, but it is something that is something that I will do very quickly. And after that, the next stages are to get to get feedback from another person, um,
Hmm.
and to get art.
And if it turns out you've written an anime book, you need to get anime art.
Well, that would be that would probably mean getting a new artist.
You are sticking with the same artist for this.
Oh, I mean, I haven't. She hasn't agreed to it yet, but
Hmm.
I am hopeful. I mean, I'm very hopeful that she will, and yes, I would. I do plan to.
So this is a question that actually has come up a lot on my Discord. How did you find and choose your artist for your book cover?
Well, it was. I had a very fortunate series of events. Um, the I think there's a famous fantasy novel about an unfortunate series of events, but that's not me. The I I I taught a writing class, and the people in my writing class stayed together and after the class was over, and formed an informal writing group. I stayed with them, and since I was no longer the teacher, um, I presented my I showed them what I was working on, and we talked about my book. Um, this was The Witches of Craddock Dale. This was my
Hmm.
first published novel, um, and one of the people that started out as a student and became fellow member of the group, um, knew the artist personally and introduced me.
So word of mouth is a very good way to go about that then.
Yeah, yeah, yes,
I
because
think
again, if you this is Robin Burrell is a very good artist, and she is a moderately well known artist.
mhm. Did you ever have a bad experience when it came to trying to hire an artist?
Well, I've only hired one, so no.
Well, I didn't know if there had ever been artists for any of your other stuff that you'd been had anything to do with, so.
Well, when the things my academic and gaming publications, I wasn't responsible for hiring the artist,
Mhm.
and I guess in a sense, I had sort of it wasn't the artist that was the problem with one book that I published with traditionally, and I'll try to keep the details out of this so I don't to protect the guilty. But with one book that I published traditionally, um, someone I knew um, did original artwork for me. Just without, I don't even think I asked for it. They just did, and it was they put a lot of work into it, and it was good. Um, it was very good. I mean, in my opinion, it was very good, and I wanted to use it because it was good, and also I wanted to use it this was a substantial favor. I mean, this person didn't ask to be paid. It was a substantial favor this person had done, and the publisher, well, maybe the publisher knew what they were doing for marketing reasons, but the publisher didn't didn't use this piece of art. The publisher used a different piece of art, which, to my eyes, looked a lot more generic, and so I was, I was disappointed, and I was concerned that the person that put in a lot of work doing this art for me was disappointed. It was sort of was a bit awkward, but in
Yeah.
the end, it is the publisher's decision, and also in the end, it is, the publisher may, again, there may be marketing reasons for doing it that I, don't know about.
Legata said your Mar of the League shows all 4 books as a box set, yet Amazon shows singles or all as ebooks. Can you still get the box set?
In paperback, I'm afraid not. It was never available as a box set in paperback. I mean, the closest you can come is you can get the four paperbacks individually separately and put them in a box.
I have
Um,
I have seen them pictured as if they were though. So I
yes,
understand.
I have a graphic that shows them that way, but that is purely computer fantasy. Um, the Now they are available as an ebook box set, and you can if you want, if you know you want to read the whole series, and it is, I personally do recommend that, not just because I want to sell more books, but because I do think the series is, you know the, the the series is a different experience from reading one book. But in any case, if you the ebook series is somewhat cheaper than 4 individual books, and it has a different cover. And if you are searching for it online, um, you may have to search for Mara of the League, complete series, separately. I'm not sure. If you search for the books individually, I'm not sure that you will get. I'm not sure that you will see the series as an option.
It's so you can buy them but only in PDF form if you're getting them as a 4-pack. Is that the
Well,
is
technically,
that
it's not PDF. It's like
yeah,
whatever
electron
ebooks are.
electronically. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Um I don't know how people in the chat feel. I'm very much I like my physical copies.
when I'm reading a book that I want to read for myself, so do I.
Davyverse wants to know how people go about finding a publisher.
Oh,
I can answer part of this question, but not all of it. So I'm gonna let you take away your experiences because they're way better than mine.
I don't know about that, but here is my experience. I mean, the the first big, you know watershed you hit is, are you trying to be traditionally published, or do you want to publish as an indie publisher? And of course, if you want to be an indie publisher, then finding the publisher, is pretty easy. There are I mean, Amazon is the most famous, indie publisher, and frankly, Amazon has 80% of the market. So you sort of even if you don't like Amazon, there is considerable pressure, to go with them. But
Boo.
they're easy to find. Um, it's what you do afterward that counts. Finding a traditional publisher, the process, is, you know there are surprisingly few, you know surprises about it. I mean, even still, it is just sort of a matter of, literally finding out who publishes books. I mean, well, I was going to say you pick up a book and look at the publisher, well, but that's not actually what you do. What you did back in the day, was there was a reference book called The Writer's Market that was like an encyclopedia of publishers, and so you would go through that and find a publisher that publishes the sort of thing you do, um, and then each publisher has a different submission procedure, which the Writer's Market will give you the basics on, and then but you find out the publisher's submission procedure and follow it. I mean, and again, the details vary, but roughly speaking, first you write a query letter saying, "I have written a book. It is about dragons. Do you want a book about dragons?" And and the editor, if the editor likes you, if the editor does want a book about dragons, the editor invites you to send a more a synopsis, a more detailed explanation of what you're writing about, and maybe some chapters. And if the editor still likes it, the editor offers you a contract. And particularly with fiction, there's often another step to the process. Often you for fiction you often need an agent, but once you're there, you do basically the same thing. The Writer's Market uh, also lists agents, so you find out how the agent likes to be approached, and write to the agent, and the agent says, yes, I do want to represent a book about dragons, or no, and then you send the agent will probably ask for more materials, and then when you get through that process, assuming the agent, when you find an agent that wants to work with you, then the, then you send the manuscript to the agent, and the agent queries the publisher and takes some of your money afterward. I don't know. I mean, but again, the overall point I'm making is the the Writer's Market was the go-to sort of back before computers. I have not. And another thing, sort of from personal experience, I didn't actually. I never found any of my publishers using the Writer's Market. I found my publishers because when I was, well, both in gaming and in academics, it's just a smaller world. If you play role playing games, you already know who the publishers are, and gaming publishers don't usually require an agent, so you can write to Steve Jackson Games and get their writers guidelines and follow their writers guidelines, and uh, you know publish with Steve Jackson Games that way. Or if you're an academic, you can do roughly the equivalent with Taylor and Francis, or whatever academic publisher you're working with. But if you're talking about fiction, and if you don't already know who the publishers are, then it used to be the Writer's Market that you used, and today, I mean, Google will probably get you some of that today, and there are probably also other um, you know online platforms that would help that I haven't worked with, but I suspect that one could find them, on the internet without much trouble.
Um, okay, if I do a little addendum to that.
Jack
That
McCarthy, I am proud to say I do. I mean, I wrote for role playing games for sort of like semi full time in the late '80s and early '90s, and I've done a number of I've worked with a number of gaming systems. I believe, well, I don't just believe it. I know that I have books in print for the GURPS role playing system with Steve Jackson Games, which are available today. I also have adventure supplements for Cyberpunk and Ars Magica from Atlas Games, which are available today. And over the course of my life, I did a lot of TSR game systems back when there was a TSR. Articles in Dragon Magazine and Dungeon Magazine and Polyhedron, and also published TSR stuff. Shadowrun with FASA, and I mean, this is something I did a lot of for a while. That's only a part of what there is.
I I did I did mean to mention that one of the people that is on tomorrow's Slice and Dice. Sorry, somebody with a very loud motor is going by. Um, One of the people on Slice and Dice tomorrow just released a Kickstarter for a magical Renaissance Venice
Cool,
supplement for Ars Magica.
cool. Oh yeah, that'd be great for us, Magica.
I thought you would find
And
that interesting.
Davyverse, best wishes writing the game. I think uh, I'm not familiar with Trench Crusade, but all in favor of um, you know taking ideas from that and doing them better, with you know and differently enough to avoid copyright problems, of course.
Um, yeah, so I did want to add on to the publishing thing a little bit, um, because publishing scams are becoming
Oh
huge
yes.
for people who are self-publishing, or there is something that's it's kind of in between self-publishing and standard publishing. A traditional publisher can look at your material and say, either I don't like this, I do like this, or I like it, but you have to change the ending. Self-publishing, you're kind of on your own. You have to find your own editor, you have to find your own marketing, everything else. And then there are these kind of in between marketers. I think they call them vanity publishers in some cases, is kind of a derogatory term, but um, and they publish a lot of specialty stuff. So there are some small publishers around me that do a lot of homesteading books. I think there are ones that are really especially aimed at people who want to write their memoirs as like a family gift. Um, and they will basically print you out X number. They will help you find artists and they will help you with a lot of other stuff. They basically do everything except the marketing itself. So they will do covers, they will do formatting, they will do editing. But they don't do any marketing. And they don't like your book goes as written. It doesn't they don't do the whole yeah, this isn't going to sell, we're not going to publish it. Um and the result is that what you get is a lot of companies that say, "Sure, we're going to publish this, you need to give us half down." And then they just disappear. I think there was recently someone, I can't remember who it was, but there was somebody that wanted a memoir published. And they ended up getting ripped off for something like $100,000. I have not finished reading the story yet. I just noticed that the headline in the first couple paragraphs this morning. Um, and Rachel mentioned earlier, it's hard if you don't have an agent, and it's hard to find an agent that is necessarily trustworthy. And, most people don't know what percentage is normal, or, whether or not they're actually going to argue on your behalf, or those things. Um, my understanding is that anthologies sometimes can be a good way to get started because they're less concerned about people having agents and they're a little more open to first time authors. So
All
there's my 2 cents.
all excellent points. And to answer Legatus, I am honored to say that I was in White Wolf magazine, and so yes on that. And with regard to vanity publishing, with regard to scams, with what you were making the point that vanity publishers don't help with marketing. Neither traditional publishers don't help much anymore either, which is one of the reasons why indie publishing is starting to be even an even better option than it used to be. Um, the and but vanity there are also marketing scams. So
True.
just because somebody does promise to help you with marketing, um, does not mean that you should give money to them. And that is, I mean, there's Twitter. it's not called Twitter anymore, but you know what I mean.
I still call it Twitter. So
Yeah, no, I make a point of calling it Twitter, but in any case, it is just saturated with marketing scams.
that
And
that
the,
part I didn't know. Art scams are a big one. Like, man, I get, and it's weird. I edit. I don't, but I don't know. I guess it's just because I write for enough magazines. I get absolutely swamped with people asking about doing art for me. Um,
and they're not legit.
well, I mean, the clue is the fact that I get uh, three things by three separate accounts that are all exactly cut and paste. You know,
That is a strong clue.
um, and I worry too because I'm really careful about the Discord because there is a section for artists in the Discord, and I don't ever want to like let someone in there and then find out that they scammed somebody on the art front. And so I try to be really careful about making sure that that doesn't happen. But I worry about it because it's hard to be sure. It's not like I know every single person that's in there personally. So,
That is worrisome, especially when you're running the site. And this actually reminds me of something that I wanted to say for anyone listening. Um, First of all, I have a free newsletter. I would be honored if any and all of you subscribe to my free newsletter. You can subscribe at the website, which Eraserhead has extremely helpfully posted several times, thomasmkane.com. Um, and if that, I mean, that is point one. Point two is if you if you want to improve my peace of mind, uh, could, please, it would also be helpful if you would write me a brief email along with your subscription, because my email address, my author email address, I'm pretty sure it's there on my website. Um,
I'll check while you talk.
okay, I think I would appreciate that because sadly, you know, newsletters are also a target for scammers. So it helps me a lot to know which of the people subscribing to my newsletter are real people. Now, to be clear, this is not a requirement. If you want to subscribe to my newsletter, don't feel that I mean, the newsletter is free. You do not have to perform labor to get the newsletter. But however, if you don't mind, um, I would appreciate it if you just said like hi, what something like hi, what saw you on the Eclectic Goat, um, whatever, just something that a scammer would not say, or would
Uh,
probably not say. Scammers are very smart. Well, a lot of scammers are very dumb, but a few scammers are very smart.
so your home page does not have a contact button. The other pages, there is a contact button at the bottom, but it is a little bit hard to find.
Okay, well that explains it. And if anyone wants the email address, it is Thomas M Kane author, all one word, all lowercase, all one word. Thomas M Kane author at gmail.com.
Oh, and actually, even when I click on the contact button, there is no email address. It's just Facebook, Twitter, and then send me a message.
Okay, well you of course you are welcome to use Facebook or Twitter as well, but I assume I suspect send me a message will automatically do the email.
Um, okay, this is the contact link for anybody who wants it.
Yeah, send me a message connects to my email.
Yeah, it's interesting how I don't like the term vanity publishing. Um, I think that even for people that are trying to just do personal projects for their family, like I don't know, I'm sure some of them are or it's a vanity thing, but like for some of them, it's a historical thing. Um, And I do feel like publishers use it when they talk about vanity publishing. I feel like publishers use it in kind of a derogatory term, but I'm not really sure how you describe it otherwise. It's like there's traditional publishing, there's self-publishing, and then there's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's a good point you're making that people, you know, people have legitimate reasons to publish a book that they don't expect to sell. Um, and uh, and and uh, I think my take on that is that a the term vanity publisher is definitely derogatory, and the and I'm not. I mean, again, I'm not really well informed about it, but my sense is that most of the organizations that get called vanity publishers deserve to get called vanity publishers. They are not your friends. Um, um, and today, uh, today, if you do have family history that that you want to write, uh, any any indie self publishing platform um, is there for you. It will be free. They are not hard to use. The only thing that you might in any way find challenging is formatting your manuscript to put it up on the indie self-publishing platform. You can hire well, of course. I'm sure there's scam formatters too. There's scam everything, but you can hire a formatter fairly cheaply. I would strongly, and I saw someone in the chat that is working on a personal project. Um, I would strongly recommend finding a formatter and using an indie publishing platform and not anything that might remotely be called a vanity publisher. And I am not sure how people handled this before before indie self publishing platforms, but I believe it has always been the case that you could hire a publisher um, just to do one print run for something that you were doing. And again, I'm sort of out of my depth, but I don't think that would not be called a vanity publisher. A vanity publisher is a company that makes its money by pretending to be a traditional publisher and hooking you in and telling you you can be famous, man. Oh wow, we love your manuscript. We want to publish it, but we need a little money up front.
Yeah.
And the bottom line with that, well, again, not that I'm a huge expert, but my understanding, what I am prepared to say about that is, never never pay to have a book published. If you don't pay to have a book published, you will not have to worry about the vanity publishing issue. And looping back, I do also see I mean. I suspect you're making a good point, Goat, that traditional publishers probably like to you use that expression vanity publishing just to smear everyone but themselves, and that you know
It also says something about what they think about the people
yeah,
doing the publishing too, which I don't like.
I don't like it at all. And I have to say, anyone who doesn't like it can take a little bit of Schadenfreude in the way the way the publishing world has gone, because for much of our lives, indie publishing was was considerably below traditional publishing, and we are approaching the point where traditional publishing is going to struggle to keep up with indie publishing. And that is, I mean, there are a lot of reasons why that if you're an indie publisher, that I mean, if you're publishing indie, that makes you happy for a lot of reasons. And one small reason is that the snobs lost.
Well,
I don't know. I don't know if they're fans of the Big Lebowski here, but the bums lost. Well, in this case, the snobs lost.
it's it's a little bit like, YouTube for a long time had a very hard time getting taken seriously, despite the fact that there were YouTubers making way more money than people doing television or movies. Um, but because it was that YouTube thing, and it
It was
wasn't,
just the internet.
yeah, it wasn't the traditional way of doing things. And even, it used to be like people wanted to graduate from television to movies, like being a movie star was the thing.
Yeah,
And then over time, now you've got movie stars who want to be on television shows because it's a lot more stable employment than, a one and done movie kind of thing.
yeah.
Um, the other thing is for people who are looking for publishers, they're well hidden, but there are a lot of small specialty publishers. I, at one point in time, and maybe will still if I can get my act together, wanted to write a book on the history of how goats helped us develop civilization. And one of the publishers I looked at is Chelsea Green Publishing, which does entirely homesteading related books, and they have a really good track record. But they're tiny, and unless you happen to read a lot of homesteading publications, you're never going to have heard of them. But
That is
those are exactly the people that are going to read a book lecturing about the history of goats. So,
that is an excellent point. And that actually getting way back to the question of how do you find a publisher, I think that might be the best advice any of us have given so far. The absolute best way to get published is uh, find a niche that not a lot of people are doing, and then find the equivalent of Chelsea Green Publishing in that niche. And that, in effect, when I was talking about how it was relatively easy to get into the gaming publishing, I mean gaming is the gaming community is probably bigger than the I don't know about that. Well, anyway, the gaming community is in effect a niche.
yeah, it's getting a little less nichey and a little harder to get into these days, but I mean, there's a reason that I write entirely nonfiction. If you write fiction, uh the highest I have ever heard of it, like an extremely well-known writer getting paid for fiction, was 6 cents a word, unless you're like Stephen King and you're getting paid royalties.
Yeah,
Just the
Stephen King
flat
gets paid a lot,
right,
but
but the
but
the
but,
the
but
flat
very
the
few of us are going to become Stephen King.
exactly. Never assume you're gonna be Stephen King.
Yeah,
But like flat rate, um, 6 cents a word is the most I've ever heard of anybody getting paid. Um, the average person who gets into nonfiction is making like 25 to 30 cents a word.
yeah,
So
yeah. That um,
apparently they are prepping the cattle prod because I have not worked on my goat book. Apparently
and
that
again that I mean you're that's an awesome point.
yeah, Jack, I agree. At the moment there is a glut in the indie RPG market, I think because all of a sudden there is an opening, and what will happen is that will sort itself out, and over time the cream will rise to the top and we'll kind of go back to things stabilizing until it happens all over again. That's my opinion anyway.
That I mean I think I've seen it happen.
Mhm. Yep. Um, and there were some that were shockingly, you'd think that they were absolutely going to rise to the top, and then they didn't. Like, if you'd told me 30 years ago that FASA wasn't going to be around today, I'd be shocked.
Yeah, well TSR.
Yes, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious and the are worth the same amount of money.
That is that is actually looking at it from the other point of view. Would as doing indie publishing, if you hire an editor, which I do, editor is charged by the word, and so I
I
am
don't.
am somewhat conscious of that point.
So for the record, I don't. I charge by the page.
Good to know.
Um, but I think you are right. The reason I charge by the I should rephrase that. I charge by either the page or by the average number of words on a page because lately I have been doing so many either specialty projects or role playing games that it gets a little bit complicated. and so I just found it easier to charge by the chunk. Because if I charge by the word and it's only I don't know, it's only an intro, it's almost not worth my time. But I still want to make sure it gets done, so I have to have a minimum kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, sure. You don't you I hear you.
Um, do we have any other questions? This has been a wonderful conversation. I think this has gone like a half an hour longer than these things ever have. So, but I'm sure that I told Tom this would be an hour, so I'm sure it's getting yeah. And Rachel has to go get ready for a stream. So,
Just wrapping up, by the way, I don't know if I've seen all the comments, but one comment I saw pass by was I believe it was you, Jack. Somebody said that they would like to have me in a game, and I'm very honored that you should say that.
I mean, I would be happy to have you in a game or happy to have you run a game. So,
I'm honored you should say that.
just for the record, Tom runs the greatest game of Shadowrun I think I've ever played in.
Very kind of you.
Yeah, so Jack said I charge by how much I hate your work. So I don't exactly do that, but I do have to say I have been known to lower my rates for projects I found especially interesting. And not for for ones that I didn't find interesting.
Dawn, thank you.
What
Edition of
edition?
D&D, second. I age out after second, so I mean I haven't really played. I know really about it. I have not even opened the rulebook or anything past second. I can understand the purest appeal of first edition, or even I think they call it OSR, basically sort of what existed when you just had like little paper pamphlets being passed around. Um, but second edition, my glory days were the days of second edition, and I do see how some things were sort of streamlined and brought together in second. So second.
Yeah, same. I mean,
And
I still think there were issues with second, and there are certain things about fifth that I understand why they did them. I don't like the advantages disadvantages thing, but like doing away with THACO, I get why they did that. Um, but yeah, overall, if I had to pick one, same.
yeah, I mean, I have to say, I don't remember THACO being a problem, but apparently it's something I hear people talking about a lot. Apparently, a lot of people do find it confusing.
I don't. I mean, there was a chart, and if you had a game master screen, it was on the screen, and most of us had the page number memorized anyway, so it wasn't a big deal.
Yep.
Um,
When I when
but
I learned
but
to play,
but I don't know anyone that actually had the THACO chart memorized, and I know people who memorize a lot of gaming stuff.
oh gosh, okay, we had a different experience. The here is my THACO story. Um, when I learned to play, I just write reading the rules. There's a chart. There are a lot of charts in but probably in all role playing games, but certainly in AD&D. So another chart. I use the chart, and then with the group of people I was playing with, they didn't memorize the chart. They figured out the formula behind it, and it was sort of like a epiphany for me seeing that. I'm like, oh, that's how the chart works. And once you know how the chart was made, you don't need the chart. You can just say, right. I mean, I will embarrass myself if I try to do it from memory, but it is very easy to calculate THACO,
No, no, no,
and
no,
they
no, no,
figured
no,
out how
no.
to do it, and that is what we did from then on.
No. If you're good at math, it is easy to do that
If,
to figure out the chart.
you, I mean, the good at
If
math is subtraction.
if you have dyscalculia, you're totally screwed.
With dyscalculia, that might be a problem, but it is. I mean, it is subtraction. I
It
mean,
is,
that's what I'm
but
saying is it's not you don't have to do like, you know, Einstein on a blackboard math.
No, 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 it's not that. But I think the other thing that people, yeah, Eraserhead says, math, I'm out. Um, I think the other thing was that some of the rolls had to be high and some of them had to be low. And for
Yes, I
someone who was just learning, I mean, by the time, second edition went away, I definitely remember it, it was just kind of automatic. But I do remember when I was first learning it, like trying to remember which was supposed to be high and which was supposed to be low was
I'm sure you were right about that. The way Thaco was constructed, a low armor class was good, and other things, you want a high strength but a low armor class, and
right.
that
And
is
saving throws.
potentially confusing.
Yeah, and then there were saving throws.
Yeah, and then there
Uh,
were saving throws.
all right. So you have definitely found at least one new fan in the chat.
Honored.
um, I don't know what it was you said that led to you're the only other person who has said that, but Jack apparently agreed with you quite a lot on something.
I'm
Um,
happy, I think.
I am going to wrap up since people need to start taking off. I noticed that people are kind of sliding out of the watch numbers. So I hope that everyone has a wonderful day. Tom, thank you again for coming. This has been fabulous.
Thank you so much for having me.
Um, and thank you to everyone in the chat. It's been wonderful to have you all here, especially considering the somewhat spontaneous nature of the beast. And we hope that I will see all of you tomorrow for Slice and Dice. It is going to be our last one, at least for the foreseeable future. So I really hope that the panel will get to go out with a bang. And everyone have a wonderful day and happy headbutting.
In a room lit by computer glows, a goat inspects striking a pose. Mic in hand, she starts the show. Questions fly, authors disclose. Indy offers in the seat of fame, tales of adventure or love untamed. The writers who deserve more acclaim, sharing their stories, joys and pain. I club to go and ask what's your dream. Chat asks questions as they stream. A quirky quest through the unforeseen. Authors laughing, eyes agleam. Questions common and unique, tale both modern and antique. Of writing and edits we will speak. Of the author's world, we'll take a peek. Books on high like paper towers, stories blooming like summer flowers. Tales for readers to devour, moments made in eclectic hours. Eclectic, go and ask what's your dream. Chat has questions as they stream. A quirky quest through the unforeseen. Authors laughing, eyes agleam. Eclectic, go and ask what's your dream. Chat has questions as they stream. A quirky quest through the unforeseen. Authors laughing, eyes agleam. Authors laugh, eyes agleam.